Hi, welcome to another Döhle Yachts coffee break. My name's Sean Langford, Technical Yacht Manager at Döhle Yachts, and I'm joined today by Florian Brend, who is an insurance broker at Döhle Yachts Hamburg. Today's topic is insurance. The marine industry, the yacht industry revolves around yacht insurance. It's how insurance began. It's one of the oldest forms of insurance, the marine industry. So it's a massive part of what we do day in and day out, from yard periods just to hull and machinery, you name it. So we're going to dive into a little bit about what the differences are between the different types of insurance. So Florian, if you could help us understand a little bit better, or me understand a little bit better, what's the difference between P&I and hull and machinery?
So P&I stands for Protection and Indemnity, which is basically the oldest form of insurance on this planet. It dates back to the times where commercial shipping started to evolve, started to become big, and when the first losses occur, the value of the cargo was so big that just one owner was basically not able to carry all these costs by himself. So that is why they tried to find a solution which ended up in the so-called mutual P&I clubs, which is called as the international group of P&I clubs, and via that they started to bundle insurance capacity in order to be able to cover all these big claims. This is how everything started, and it ended up in for example yacht insurance. Besides the commercial shipping, which is still being the biggest part on marine insurance, yacht insurance evolved as a niche market, which is of the same importance. I mean, we have very big vessels, high value assets on the water, and these assets are exposed to various risks, and these need to be covered.
Sure.
So protection and indemnity insurance practically covers all maritime liability risks associated with the ownership and operation of a vessel, including third-party risks for bodily injury, risks of environmental damage such as oil spills and pollution, damages to fixed and floating objects, wreck removal, and in some cases even hull damages of an opponent vessel in a collision claim. In comparison, hull and machinery insurance damages the vessel. The hull and machinery insurance covers damages to the vessel,
Sure.
To its hull, its machinery, contents, etc. And depending on the policy, basically everything physically connected to the yacht. There's no need for both P&I and H&M insurance. However, P&I is highly recommended, as otherwise most mariners will deny access to their facilities.
Okay.
And out of the two, P&I becomes even mandatory according to some flag states for yachts and if they are being used commercially.
Okay. Right. Which one would be worth the most? Which one would be more expensive?
More expensive for the client is definitely hull and machinery insurance. That is the nature of the asset you insure. The higher the value of the yacht, the higher the premium for the insurance. Whereas protection and indemnity has the same trigger, basically, but in general, premium is not on the same level as hull and machinery insurance.
Okay. So looking at other types of insurance, what's the various crew insurances that are required?
Yeah, this is basically a good question, as we as a broker often get asked, why should there be crew insurance besides P&I when P&I covers crew for accidents, for example, or illness while being on board, on duty, on a yacht. So P&I covers a crew member for any claims happening on board and or while operating a tender, while the crew member is on contract and the claim is directly being linked to the operation of a yacht.
Okay.
This is like a standard common market practice phrase. This includes illness, injury, death, everything which can happen while you are on duty as a crew member.
Okay.
And as mentioned before, P&I covers the owner's liability towards his crew. That is why I'm just focusing on what is happening while being on duty.
Sure.
However, referring to the crew insurance itself, we have to differentiate because often you have a crew member on rota system, or you have a crew member taking a day off, exploring a city, going skiing or whatsoever.
Yeah, sure.
It can easily be the case, being on vacation. And another point to consider are crew employment contracts, which might bind the owner to provide health insurance to his crew by contract.
Yeah.
Commonly, insurers offer, in this sector, offer medical expenses, personal accident and illness, along with permanent, total, and or partial disability cover.
Yeah, okay.
There's one further point to consider is that we always have to look at every yacht individually.
Yeah.
To determine, for example, whether a vessel has to comply with the Maritime Labour Convention or not. It depends whether a yacht is registered for commercial use or for private pleasure. But this being said, as an owner of a commercially used vessel, you're obliged to provide your crew with health insurance irrespective of the employment contract.
Okay.
MLC does not, in general, apply to private registered vessels. So there's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, very good. Understood. So, looking at it as a sort of general role, what's the role of the underwriter? And I mean, I know you're a broker. Maybe you could tell us the difference between your role and what the underwriter does.
Yeah, it's sometimes basically a subject where we as a broker fight with an underwriter when it comes to assessing a risk. So, in general, when it comes to yacht underwriting, there are few absolutes and many exceptions to the rule. It's just the nature of the business because we are in such a niche market on the insurance side. A yacht underwriter is a professional who provides insurance coverage and help brokers and owners to choose the correct type and amount of coverage in order to protect an asset from loss, the liabilities related to the owner or its crew members. Yeah. There are typically three main types of yacht underwriters referring to the topics we just discussed. So there are hull and machinery underwriters, it's a market of its own. We have P&I underwriters, market of its own, and also the crew insurance underwriters. Yeah. Often hull and machinery underwriters must provide proper coverage, not only for a vessel itself, but also for contents, fine art, tenders and towage which are being stored on board, so their knowledge expands over the time they work in this business.
Sure.
I would say the successful underwriter, aware that the desirable risks become unexpected total losses and that miserable risks sometimes weather all storms undamaged, will soon develop awareness about every vessel which is presented for coverage. Right. This wariness, essential to good underwriting, must be balanced with a willingness to take risk, lest no vessel would be found suitable for coverage.
Okay.
So you always have to balance and see with what you feel most comfortable. The yacht insurance underwriter's goal in general is to identify those risks which are less likely to produce a claim or loss during the insurance policy. And we can say, even we as a broker mostly come across the topics that two of the main tools used to identify risks or to define a potential risk are, for example, the hull survey or a pre-purchase survey report, and the application form for insurances, each of which should be read in conjunction with each other. In general, the very underwriter recognizes that these documents are prepared by an assured person and a broker or a broker whose interests are sometimes far away from that of the insurer. These documents are critical to good underwriting, not only for what is said therein, but especially for what is left unsaid. And you can say before a vessel can be insured, a yacht underwriter must assess the probability of a risk. Underwriters use a combination of statistics and investigation to determine the odds that a particular ship will be damaged or lost. For example, they try to keep track on machinery damages and try to identify vessels with similar main engines and auxiliary engines, for example, if you have a series of a specific yacht type. Also a marine expert may inspect a yacht, which is becoming more and more practical, that once you incept a risk with insurance, especially on the hull and machinery side, is that the underwriters put a warranty into the condition wording, that they want to have an expert coming on board these days, probably doing it remotely, but to check the vessel and to identify any potential risks. Underwriters also consider, for example, the vessel specs, flag, age, construction material, cruising area, the registration type and or usage, and also upcoming yard periods and refit plans, and very importantly, the history of the past claims. Insurance underwriters must be knowledgeable about maritime laws and conditions in many different countries, which can directly affect insurance costs. Sometimes yachts pass high-risk areas that are open to, for example, modern piracy, or may have harsh weather conditions. Also, cruising in remote areas might affect insurance costs, and as support and for example also repair facilities are very rare in case of an emergency when you look on the world map. Also, yacht underwriters must take many diverse factors into account when assessing a proposed insurance plan. Further, once a yacht underwriter has estimated the potential risk to a vessel, an insurance policy is created. So we are now moving into this role of the underwriter. What is happening after assessing all these theoretical criteria when focusing on a potential risk? So generally, a policy for a low-risk yacht is less expensive than a comparable insurance plan that covers a high-risk operation. An underwriter can even choose to increase the insurance premium for a risky venture only, or deny coverage completely if the hazard is too great. When an insurance loss occurs, for example, a fire, which is basically the most often claim in the yacht industry, insurance underwriters work with investigators, surveyors, brokers, and lawsuits to determine who is at fault. If an accidental loss is covered by the policy, the insurance company will provide a payout.
Okay.
That is what insurance is there for.
Yeah, sure.
And this is what you always should expect from your insurance.
Yeah.
However, a yacht underwriter must closely analyze each incident in order to ensure that fraud does not occur and the correct insurance payment is made. Lastly, no two yacht risks are the same, and a successful underwriter of each risk is a skill developed by experience, I would say.
Yeah. Wow, massive. Thank you. And as you can see, there's a lot to the yachting insurance industry. We've pretty much just scraped the top of it there. So thanks for joining us. And next coffee break, we're going to be continuing the insurance side of it and looking at yard refurb and new build with regards to insurance. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see both of us at the next coffee break. Cheers, bye.
Thank you, bye.